Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to NHL 25. New year, new game, except, hey, this time we actually have some pretty substantial franchise mode changes. How nice is that? And of course, you already know by the title of the episode what team we're going to be using, but really quickly, before we get down to business, this is going to be primarily a setup episode to kind of showcase, hey, what we're starting with and what direction we might go with this. As well, uploads for the next couple of days might be a little bit infrequent. I have the ability to pre-record this before I head out of town for a couple of days, but don't worry, if it's a couple days between episodes and stuff like that, we'll be back on track very, very soon. Before we get started with this, I had another video drop that talked about the rosters that are out there. It is EA's September 19th update that this game launches with, which feel free to check out my rundown video of that. I go through the entire NHL and kind of look at the ratings that are there and stuff like that. It's not great. The video's great. The ratings themselves aren't that great, which is unfortunate. But I have gone through and added in some of the new contracts that update from EA would not have been able to add, such as Cole Perfetti's new deal with Winnipeg, Logan O'Connor, Colorado, Dawson Mercer, Dylan Guenther, and players like that. So again, make sure to check that roster rundown video out if you haven't already. But let's get down to business here, because again, as I mentioned, you already know, we are going to be using the Columbus Blue Jackets to kick off this year. There are a lot of teams that were in the running to use, and we'll obviously have numerous franchise modes throughout the year, right? But Columbus obviously is an interesting team to use right now, and I feel like in a general sense, one, I want to make sure that the rosters are better, probably through customization, right? Before we really get into a franchise mode super heavily. So because of that, this is just going to be more of like, hey, dipping our toe into what franchise mode is this year, what we like about it, what we don't. And in the meantime, hopefully bringing the Stanley Cup to a team and a fan base that, I don't think anybody would be really upset to see them get right about now, right? For obvious reasons. When you start up a franchise mode, most of the stuff is the same. I am still going to turn off owner mode. It's not a bad feature to have. It's just not very conducive with the micromanaging for me in terms of a franchise mode and making things hopefully a little bit more entertaining. Player morale, though, will be on. I want to see how this works this year, especially with the expanded conversation system that they have this year. In terms of the rules, auto scouting will be on. Again, scouting has not seen any changes whatsoever, unfortunately, and hopefully it happens soon, because it would be nice to have more immersive scouting, especially when even a game like Madden has more immersive scouting for their draft. College football with their recruitment has a lot more immersive of a setup as well. So hopefully that is a change coming to franchise mode in the near future, hopefully NHL 26, let's be honest. But again, auto scouting will be on. That was a lot of words just to say that, I know. Trade difficulty will be on hard, as per usual. Draft pick ownership's fine. Computer trade's fine. 25 years is still the limit. So there is that going on too. And aside from that, I just want to bump that up. We're going to leave injuries. I imagine injuries play out the same way as they have for years and years now. But I think it is still worth taking a look just to see if it's seen any sort of changes whatsoever, because there have been changes to the game. And we'll get to that right now, actually, because Sim Engine scoring has changed. They didn't talk about it at all. But I was talking with Tactics. That's Tactics HD on the YouTube side of things, of course. And Sim Engine scoring is just outright higher this year. Like, if you put it on high, you will likely see numerous players break 100 points by the time you get to the deadline, for example. So there are some things that have changed. It's just a matter of finding them out because they haven't told us everything. We'll leave morale meetings on because I feel like that's going to be tied well to what's going on. Trade offers, though, I'm going to turn those off. Head coach firing. Again, you still don't have licensed coaches in the game. That's not so much an EA thing as it is a coaching association thing. And the licensing that goes on there, I'd like to see that change as well. Please give me the ability to be John Tortorella in this video game. So you know what? We'll leave that on medium high. Draft class quality, we'll leave that on medium as well. That's fine. We'll go fully healed for all of that, and there we go. We should be ready to rock. At least I hope. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to treat this Blue Jackets run just as a straightforward, let's play franchise mode, see what's there to experience. And then, of course, in the future, we're going to get down to all the fun stuff that we normally do, draft glories, all the good stuff that you know me to do throughout the year. Now, again, the brand new HUD that we have for this game, which is why there's no webcam this time out, so I don't have to like turn it on, turn it off whenever something pops up. There will be the whole... You'll be able to see my beautiful face in subsequent episodes, especially once we get to streaming this particular series. But again, that right-hand side, having the ability to click in the right stick to view all the stats that you would normally be able to view, right? Like that screen is no different, but being able to hit the triggers to go to team standings immediately, or our individual team leaders, or the league leaders. Like, essentially, it is a matter of trying to make it as seamless as possible to scroll through these menus, right? And I know a lot of people were a little bit worried about the menus being laggy or something like that. Outside of the calendar taking like that amount of time, which is 2 seconds to scroll through, I find this to be relatively responsive so far. There might end up being a menu that's a little bit slower. We'll see. But so far, that feels fast and responsive in regards to the menus. I know a lot of people were worried about that. In the video that I put out going through the rosters, I mentioned the free agent list as well. There was 2 players that I took out. Carter Hart starts off on the free agent list, and Tony DeAngelo as well. Of course, one of them is in Russia, and the other guy should probably be in jail, allegedly, at least for the moment, allegedly. So that's the situation there with those players. But again, the free agent list, and hey, for those playing bingo at home, but again, that's the free space. That is. You have the organization interest for each player. I don't plan on signing anybody, right? I mean, we're at 44. Actually, we're at 44 out of 50 contracts. Maybe we should. But obviously, you have Max Pacioretty out there who's probably going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. But in terms of what the screen looks like, again, you have their award histories and stuff like that. Like, there are some nice changes this year. And if we wanted to negotiate with Pacioretty, again, we could for up to 7 years. There can be clauses, and again, the clause structure, you can defer the no movement clause structure. You can dictate just how much trade protection there is based on percentages, which again, it's just really, really nice to see. If you have no movement, no trade, the modified no trade clauses, you can decide how many years that's active for, and of course the percentage of teams that are included in that conversation as well. So there are some very, very nice changes this year. I'm going to be happy that we no longer have to do wheel spins to decide no movement and no trade clauses, but we'll get back to that in a moment because I want to look at the contracts for our team starting off here in Columbus. Goalie-wise, Elvis Merzlikins, of course, is still there. His rating is far too high, but $5.68 million against the cap for the next little bit with a 10-team no-trade clause over the next 3 years. And, of course, you can look there at the 22 teams that he is willing to be traded to. In that instance, I'd rather see the 10 teams that he's not willing to be dealt to, but maybe that's just me as opposed to doing the math and being like, oh, Minnesota, he doesn't want to go to Minnesota, for example. But I actually don't know what the hell we're going to do with Elvis and if he's going to be our starter, because in a real life scenario, the Blue Jackets are trying to deal him, but in this timeline, an 83 overall goalie is not a bad one to have. Our only unsigned goaltender right now is Evan Gardner, who was the 60th overall pick in this past year's draft, and we will leave him unsigned and to develop in junior. Defensively, we have Zach Werenski with a full no movement clause. Provorov, Severson has a no trade. And of course, this marks down a future season clause, in case anyone was wondering. David Yarosek, who is massively overrated at this point in time, but obviously Blue Jackets fans are hoping he can end up being that good. And then, of course, we got the veteran presence of Eric Goodbranson and Jack Johnson. I can't believe Eric Goodbranson's only 32. It feels like he should be about 37 years old, like Jack Johnson is. Also, modified no trade clause for Eric Goodbranson. Dude's got the best agent in the NHL. He really does. It is a 10-team no trade list for him as well if we were to try and deal him. And in the system, at least we have guys like Svozil, Matejchuk, pretty solid. Corson Coolman's, I mean, you could argue maybe he should have had a little bit higher of a potential, but Charlie Elick is there, who they recently drafted as well. He is down in junior, as is Luca Morelli. So we'll leave both of them unsigned. Right wing side, Marchenko, Chinnikov, Danforth, Olivier, Gavin Brindley. We'll obviously drop Gavin Brindley down to the AHL. Nobody unsigned to worry about. Low elite potential, though, for Jordan Demay. That's not bad. That's not bad. Of course, he has done wonders in the queue since being drafted. Very intrigued to see if he can keep up that level of development now that he moves on to the pro game. Left wing side, they, of course, just recently signed James Van Riemsdyk, Bruins legend JVR. Unsigned Caden Lindstrom, which he's listed as a depth forward, so there is an argument that it would be worth signing the 4th overall pick. I think we're going to as well. Now, again, you don't have to enter the in-depth negotiations, right? Like, you can just offer someone a contract like you always used to. And yeah, we're going to offer him a max, entry-level contract. And there we go. Caden Lindstrom is signed. Whether or not he makes our team, we'll see in a moment. And then for the centers, Fantilli, Jenner, Johnson, Monahan, Corrali, and Cole Sillinger. Only unsigned player to worry about is Keskinen, which, again, I don't... Well, actually, I mean, he could go to the AHL. 7th round pick in 2023. Let's sign him up. Why not? I'll always give a Finn money if I have the opportunity to. So welcome in Oiva. And then Tyler Peddle, I believe. Indeed, Tyler Peddle, who is with St. John. So we'll avoid signing him. That brings us up to 45 contracts. So let's see what our team is looking like, and then we'll take a look at some of the conversations. Now, again, I do want to mention this right now. You do not have to engage with every single one of these. This is every active player that you have on your roster. You do not need to talk to everybody. This isn't, oh my God, I have to do every single one of these. No, you can be selective with who you want to talk to, or you could talk to every single person if you wanted to. It's a time versus reward thing, right? Like, if you want to put in the time to talk to everybody, you can get a decent little reward out of it if people hit those goals, but it's not a requirement to talk to every single person. Goaltending, we're actually looking decent there. So defense, left-hand side, Werenski, Provorov, and Jordan Harris, right side, Severson, Yarosek, and Goodbranson. So, I mean, Harris might even end up being the depth option. We do have Matejchuk. Ooh, Matejchuk and Svozil are both listed as depth options. But based off of who we have on roster, I think they're going to have to just start in the AHL, more than likely. That right wing side, we are looking okay. Gavin Brindley is also listed as a depth forward, as is Trey Fix-Wolansky. I don't know if we're necessarily going to have space for these guys, though. Let me send down Brindley for the moment, because he'd be in the AHL. And then centers a whole lot of second-line forwards. Now, if I tried to play people within their roles, we could get away with it. Yeah, it would actually be perfect. So we'd need one depth forward. Dylan Gambrell would be perfect. So maybe that does mean Caden Lindstrom starts in the AHL, or in junior, I should say. So what we'll do,
I'm just trying to walk through this
for the
grass.
preseason at least, and shout out to those Twitch follows. Hell yeah, brother. That's what happens when you forget to turn those off when you're recording. Shout out to Impesium. Welcome. Gotta love that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that jump scare like I did. These 4 players here, well, Dylan Gambrell is probably going to make the team anyway. But Fix Wolanski, Brindley, and Lindstrom, we will call them up for the preseason because I want to see how responsive the stories can be in regards to the preseason. We know that veterans like Boone Jenner, Sean Monahan, and JVR are likely to make the team. So we'll rest them. And we'll call up Svozil and Matejchuk and drop Goodbranson, Johnson, and probably Zach Werenski because of the immense amount of injury history that Zach Werenski is starting to add at this point in time. So let's start the younger guys for the preseason. Of course, the edit line screen is the same as it's been. We will go head coach preferred lines at the moment, and we want to give these younger guys an opportunity on the higher lines. Now, Fix Wolanski, he's 25 at this point, so I don't think we have to worry about him too much. You got 31-year-old Justin Danforth, so this should, Marchenko's 24. Dude, Chinnikov's 23 already. Jesus. How the hell did that happen? Time is nuts. We'll go with, let's go with Cole Sillinger in the preseason top 6 here, and we'll give, like I said, these younger guys an opportunity to make the team. Let's go with Caden Lindstrom with Fantilli and Brindley. That works for me. And then we are going to need a center, and this should be okay. Although Olivier is also supposed to be a right wing, but whatever. I'm not going to worry too much about Matthew Olivier. And then defensively, let's give Svozil. Ooh, what do we want to do here? Because we got 3 younger defensemen. We do have 3 younger defensemen. You know, let's go with something like that and kind of split up those younger defensemen amongst the lineup. So we'll see if anything comes out of that for the preseason roster. See if our coach responds with like, hey, the trials or anything like that, right? So we'll see what we got going on as far as that's concerned. And then again, anything else to check? Not really. Of course, you have the first year draft class where I'm sure there'll be a generated dude or 2 or multiple. Time will tell. Roger McQueen's in this draft, Michael Misa, Porter Martone, Malcolm Spence. A lot of the names I think that people would expect to see there. And they haven't necessarily been unfair in regards to some of the potentials that they have handed out. And aside from that, it was just going to be the scouting that I wanted to potentially take a look at. But to be honest, I think we're fine. Again, the scouting's the same thing, so I think we're okay. So to kick it off, for example, let's talk to Adam Fantilli because he is going to be a key player here for us, right? So we can set a season goal. We can talk about the quote-unquote on-ice tactics, which is the player style or the position that they play. He's good to go in that regards because I haven't necessarily looked at his attributes and his player type. But if we look at the season goal, we got short-term, long-term. It's definitely a long-term goal for him heading into the season. A stat challenge gives you the chance to boost attributes. An award challenge can also give you an attribute boost, or a statistical challenge to potentially gain an X factor, which is what we want to work on. And in terms of what's there, you see that he has the ability for a 1T increase, which would be 15 power play goals, 30 goals in general to get the Schneip ability, 3 hat tricks for shock and awe, 40 assists for third eye, 750 wins for quick draw. And 30 goals for Fantilli? That doesn't seem impossible. Like, do we trust him to score more or to get the assists? And I got to be honest, I mean, I think if we can get Fantilli on 30 goals, we'll be pretty happy with that. So let's see. And he is down for that approach. So goal for the season, 30 goals for Adam Fantilli. And again, this is the type of stuff that we used to do in our own time that is now actually implemented into the game, which is really, really nice. And again, aside from that, you could talk about his on-ice play still in terms of changing things, so we can always just go back and double-check his attributes. And actually, let's do that now and see if we maybe made a bad decision in regards to what we're trying to have him do. But, I mean, it's Adam Fantilli. He's a power forward, 30 goals, certainly possible. And as you look at the attributes, it's like, yeah, power forward's fine. Why not, right? I mean, you could technically set him up as a sniper or as a playmaker, but yeah, power forward's fine. And again, goal and promises under meeting available, 30 goals for the Schneip ability. Best locker room chemistry is Yegor Chinnikov. Interesting. Don't know if we'll pair them together, though. So that is the type of deal that you have with somebody like Fantilli. I was pretty sure you could talk to your coach. It's not giving me the option right now. But let's sim ahead because we don't have to set all of those up right now, right? And there is the conversation with our generic coach, Bryson Eakin. Establish our goals and try. I mean, I can just end the conversation immediately and say, you do you, Bryson. But we can set up a season goal or talk about what we want to do in the preseason, which in the preseason, now this is pretty nice, right? You can focus on the conditioning to get attribute boosts to what you see there on screen, although we would potentially lose puck control, but our speed, our acceleration, our endurance would go up. There's a trade-off to everything, right? Like, hey, strength training, but we lose a bit on discipline. Skill, we'd lose some on defensive awareness. 5-on-5 focus, lose a bit to deking. Look to improve our power play, our penalty kill. The video sessions would boost the awareness, but drop shot power. Team bonding, I mean, if you need morale to go up and it's kind of, after a rough off season, is also an option. Or no negatives to this, but just outright be a goalie-focused team. And in terms of the preseason and what we're looking to focus on here and what type of team we're looking to be, I mean, I think we got to be goalie focused, right? Like, we need Elvis Merzlikins to be decent. If we have any chance of making the playoffs this year, it is all about what Elvis Merzlikins can do for us. And if we go back to the conversations, Eakin is now there, and we can talk to him on a game-by-game basis in the game plan for this team. Now, of course, we could run his preferred lines, his preferred ice time allocation. That's, locked at this point in time. But the coaching style as well is a bit of a risk. And, he was not overly receptive to me saying, like, hey, your approach isn't necessarily the best. Now, again, all of this is optional, much like morale was before. You don't have to engage with this all the time. Could it get old really quickly? Yeah, perhaps. But again, you're not tied to doing it. And we'll just go ahead and say, thanks, coach. Sorry that I pissed you off. We'll just go ahead and back down a little bit. But let's see what happens here. First preseason game against New Jersey. Elvis Merzlikins immediately gets injured. But we did win the game. And actually, let's go just sim to regular season. I want to see if any prompts pop up after the completion of the preseason, and we'll take it from there, especially in regards to some of the younger guys, right? Is anything necessarily going to pop up here? Whoops. Stop simulation for waivers. Okay, so if we go talk to our coach, does he have any thoughts about the younger players in the trials? It actually doesn't look like it. So from there, it would just be our decision of like, okay, let's take a look at the preseason, see if these guys actually did well enough, which we kind of know they wouldn't have. Right? So we're probably going to go with the roster as we talked about it, just to see those. Fozil didn't do too much. Matejchuk didn't do too much, so maybe it's not surprising that our coach didn't offer up like, hey, you sure you don't want to play these guys? Like Brindley, 3 assists, but a -2. Caden Lindstrom, 1 assist and a -2. Yeah, we didn't exactly set the world on fire in the preseason. So we know what the roster will end up looking like as we start our first season. The only thing I want to do is check the activity feed to see, have there been any trades? No, but in terms of signings, who may have gone where in terms of the names that are out there? Because obviously in real life, some NHL teams do still have space on the rosters. Tanner Pearson back to Los Angeles. Ryan Johansson went to Vancouver. Don't know how well that would go over. Mason Primo goes to Utah. Sammy Blais to Montreal. Mike Hoffman to Tampa. Pacioretty to Edmonton. Leafs fans are furious. Giordano to Winnipeg. And Alex Nylander. Turns out you're not going to play in Toronto this year, buddy. Kyle Yamamoto back to Edmonton. Florida signed Ryan Suter. Wasn't he under contract with somebody? That's an interesting one. Maybe he was auto-cut? Like I said, we're going to find out all the fun things and stuff to do with franchise modes that we better know how to approach things moving forward. I'll let you go for now. I'll let you off easy with a relatively quick episode 0, so to speak. Again, we'll be back soon to continue on with the Blue Jackets. And actually, we were 5-1-1 in the preseason, and Merzlikins killed it. So maybe that goaltending meeting actually worked out pretty damn well.